For this task, we're going to update two components, insider trading component and year-to-date component. So we'll first check how these components would look like once they are completely implemented. So the insider trading component would be similar to RSS feeds component. You will have a grid with check mark to select, and on selection of that row, a link will be opened. The insider trading component would look similar to this one. So you have a grid in the top, sorry, year-to-date component would look similar to fundamentals. So you'd have a grid in the top where you have YTD, year-to-date codes. So a code is nothing but just a ticker. So once you select a particular row in that year-to-date codes, a grid in the bottom will be, a pane in the bottom will be displayed similar to this. In details, you will display just a single grid. Right now, this screen has too much data, but in the year-to-date, we'll have only a single grid like this. And in the second pane, you will display the raw data. The raw data is just the JSON output of the REST API call. So I'll go back to the Visual Studio Code, and I already integrated with the backend services. So let's discuss the insider trading component. So insider trading component will, once you initialize this component, you will get data in on ngInit. After the route is resolved, insider trades will be in an array of I insider trades. That array will contain an array of objects with these values. So you're going to display this in the grid, which is similar to that RSS feeds I described. In the RSS feed, you had news elements, right? Here you are going to have the insider trades, and there's a link. So you're not going to display this link in the grid. When you click on the row selection checkbox, a new browser should open and it should display this link. So that is already plugged in here. On insider trade selected, if you send that event which will have the link in it, a new browser window will open. So that's the change you have to do for insider trade. I wrote some details here. Just use RSS grid page, which is there, and then it has some more information which I just discussed. Then in the year-to-date component, similarly you're going to have on route resolution, you will have YTD codes. YTD codes are just a list of, you have to just display this piece. So I mentioned it here, YTD codes, display data in YTD codes.data. And then once you select a code in there, the new component should output emitter, input emitters and output emitters. The output emitter should call this, and this REST call will return YTDs. This .ytds is equal to data, which will be an array of YTDs, array of this data. So you have to display that in the second grid. So you just display that. Yes, you just display the YTDs, and like I mentioned, it's going to have two tabs, right? In the first tab you display the grid, and the second tab you display the raw data. Display YTD as a JSON string. So for this you have to follow the fundamentals grid fundamentals format. Yeah, I mentioned it here. Copy code from grid stock tickers, copy code from grid fundamentals. So I'm expecting around 2 hours of work for YTDs, 2 hours of and 4 hours of work for insider trading. There are 3 grids, right? So each grid, if it takes 2 hours, you'll have 6 hours of work. And YTD grid is pretty straightforward. It's just a single grid on selection of row. You have to display a browser. All the code is there, but since you have to analyze the data, and also I'm thinking 2 hours for each grid, so 6 hours in all, 3 grids in total. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.